Storytimes by Rotox666 on TikTok. Anyways, story time about why I'm scared of cars. I was in the car with my grandma and brother. My grandma was driving and me and my brother were playing with our tablets, and I looked out the window on my brother's side. I screamed because I saw a car coming directly toward us. The car crashed into us, and let me tell you, it wasn't pretty. My grandma's side, which is the driver's side, had her door pushed into the car. My brother asked my grandma if she was okay, and my grandma told him to sit down and stay calm since the police and firemen were on their way. My grandma called 911, and when the police and firemen came, the firemen had to get the door to bust open on the driver's side. They took me and my brother to the hospital to check if we were okay. My mom came to the hospital with my baby sister, and the nurse told her that we were going to be sore. And my grandma told the police what happened, and the other person who crashed told them his point of view. He was guilty and had to buy us another car.
Story time about how my husband accidentally told me that he was cheating on me. So just some background information. My husband and I got engaged 2 years ago, and this whole situation happened a month after we got married. So fast forward, it's a Sunday morning. Well, usually every week on Sunday, I clean the whole house. So I woke up, went into the bathroom to take my ring off, and I could not get it off. Mind you, I had gained a little bit of weight since my husband and I got engaged. Anyways, I tried butter, I tried soap, I tried everything, even oil. So after trying to get it off for an hour straight, my finger was 3 times bigger than it usually is. So at this point, I'm really scared that I'm going to have to get it cut off. Because 1, I didn't want to ruin it, and 2, it was really expensive. So I call my husband and he's like, "Oh, call your dad. Firefighters always know what to do." So I called my dad, and thank God he lived 5 minutes away because he drove over really quickly. Part 2 of how my husband accidentally told me that he was cheating on me. So like I said, my dad lived 5 minutes away, so he just rushed over to my house. And we tried a few more things to get it off. We tried Windex, we tried the dental floss, none of it was working. So my dad told me that we were going to have to cut it off with pliers. So he comes over with the pliers, cuts the ring off. Well, a few days later, I had taken it to the same place that we got it to get the band fixed or replaced. While I was there, I decided to get it appraised just for insurance reasons. So a few days later, I go and pick up my ring, and when I get home, I look at the appraisal. It was not the same one that I had picked out in the store. It looked exactly like it, but there was like a $20,000 price difference. So right now, I'm like, what the f***? I'm not mad about the money part. I'm more mad that my husband lied to me. I was more upset about the fact that he had lied to me. So I had made dinner reservations for the next night, so that way I could hopefully bring up the conversation about it. Part 3 of how my husband accidentally told me that he was cheating on me. So like I said, I had made reservations for him and I to go out to dinner, so that way I could hopefully spark up the conversation about it. So when we finally sat down, I had started up the conversation. I had told him that when I took my ring in to get it fixed, I also got it appraised. And his face immediately changed after that, but he wasn't saying anything. He was like, "Oh, okay, how did that go?" So at this point, I was tired of beating around the bush, and I was like, "Why wouldn't you just tell me if we were having money troubles?" And he was like, "What do you mean? We're not having any money troubles. I'm fine." One thing about my husband is that he is very wealthy. And he takes pride in the fact that he is very wealthy. So obviously, me right there kind of questioning his wealth, he f***ed up and told me the truth. He was like, "Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I accidentally gave the ring that I was supposed to give you to a girl I was seeing at the time. And I just never got around to replacing yours." So fast forward to present day, I am currently moving all of my stuff out of our house and filing for divorce.
I was 14, I had a best friend named Lucy, and we had one of those friendships where we were really close really quickly, which I now know is a red flag and usually a sign of a toxic friendship, but I was too young to know this then. Our favorite thing to do together was hang out at the mall. Our parents would let us go alone as long as we abided to one rule. We had to stay together at all times, and we were always pretty good about that. One night we were having a sleepover at Lucy's house, and her Uncle Mike came over for dinner. Uncle Mike was pretty loud and goofy. He showed us like 8 magic tricks that night. I liked him, he was fun, but as I was helping clear dishes after dinner, I overheard Mike and Lucy's mom having a hushed conversation in the kitchen. She was like, "You've had too much to drink, why don't you just spend the night?" So Mike ended up sleeping over that night too. Right before going to sleep, Lucy's mom came into the bedroom, and she told us to remember to shut the bedroom door before falling asleep. When I asked Lucy why she said that, Lucy just shrugged and said, "I don't know." But we made sure the bedroom door was shut just like she asked. In the middle of the night, I woke up to the feeling of someone tickling my feet. So I was having a sleepover at Lucy's house and I woke up in the middle of the night to someone or something tickling my feet. I scream and then I hear shuffling. Lucy wakes up and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I tell her that something was tickling my feet, but she doesn't believe me. I'm like, "Well, why is the door open? We shut it before we went to sleep." And she goes, "Relax. Sometimes it happens because there's a draft in the house." And I tell her that I think it was her uncle who was tickling my feet and she goes, "Oh, come on, you're hallucinating." And honestly, at the time I had a bad feeling about Lucy's reaction. It felt like she was gaslighting me and I had no idea why. A few weekends later, Lucy and I are chilling at the mall on a Saturday afternoon. My parents let us go to the mall together alone, but their one rule is that we have to stay together the whole time. They call it the buddy system. So that day, Lucy's acting weird. She keeps looking around nervously and checking her phone. She says she has to go to the bathroom and I'm like, "Okay, I'll go with you." Because we always go together even if the other person didn't have to pee. And Lucy's like, "No, I'll go alone. I'll be quick." And I'm like, "No, I'll just go with you." And she snaps really aggressively and she's like, "Just stay here." And then she spins around and sprints away from me. So Lucy's running away from me in the mall. I sprint after her. She's super fast. She rounds a corner and then I can't find her after that. I start crying. I have no idea why my best friend ran away from me. So I sit down on a bench in the mall. I'm still crying, really overwhelmed. Then I hear someone say my name. So I look up and it's Lucy's uncle, Uncle Mike. He asks what's wrong and I tell him. He's being super nice and comforting. And then he starts rubbing my back, which made me uncomfortable, but I don't say anything. Then he offers to give me a ride home. And I say, "No, I can just call my parents." And he goes, "Just let me give you a ride, come on." But the way he said it the second time gave me goosebumps. It was aggressive. Like he wasn't asking me, he was telling me. So I stand up and step away from him and say, "You're making me uncomfortable, I'm calling my parents." Mike glares at me and then he says, "No one likes a tease." And he walks away. I told my parents what happened and they immediately called Lucy's parents. Apparently, Uncle Mike had taken a liking to me. And he found out that I was going to be at the mall that day with Lucy. And Mike paid her $100 to run away and leave me alone with him. He told Lucy that I liked him too and that she was being a good friend by giving us alone time. I never spoke to Lucy again after that.
Story time of how I found out that my mom was actually my older sister. My older sister never really liked me as a child. We were never close. I never knew why, but I was guessing it was because of the 10-year age gap. But I'm pretty sure she hated me because she couldn't even look me in the eye. I cannot make this up. She would not look me in the eye. But she never really talked to my parents either. She kind of just kept to herself all the time. Sometimes I have vivid memories of when we were younger and she would always be arguing with my parents about something and I always thought it had something to do with me. Well, I was right. It had everything to do with me because eventually my sister turned 18 and she moved out. For 2 years, I didn't talk to her at all. I honestly don't even think I had her number saved. And I'm pretty sure that she didn't have mine. Well, 2 years later, and I was 10 at the time, she reached out to me via social media. I'm not sure how she found my Instagram name, but it was just my name, so she probably just typed that in and found me. She DM'd me and told me that she wanted to talk about something very important and that she would like to talk over the phone. So we exchanged numbers and we called that same night. And she told me that when she was younger, my dad had taken advantage of her and gotten her pregnant and had me. This is part 2 of how I found out that my mom was actually my older sister. So like I said, my older sister had reached out to me via social media and told me that she was actually my mother. And so after we got off the phone that same night, I lost it at dinner and I went off on my parents and I screamed at them. And I told them that I would go to the police and tell them everything and I would tell them the truth unless they just let me live with my older sister. And they tried to explain themselves and their reasoning was that they wanted to keep the family together because of their traditional values. And it would have just made their lives a lot harder going through all the court proceedings, so they just kept the family together. And so they clearly didn't want me to go into the police, so they said that I could go live with my older sister. So she came to get me, but she lived in a different state, so it kind of took a while. I still had to stay in the house for like a week or so before she came, but I packed all my stuff and I was ready to go. And when we went back to where she lived, we immediately called the police and told them everything. Fast forward a little bit, they did some DNA testing. My sister's DNA matched as my biological mother's, and then my dad was my biological father, and they saw how the ages just didn't match properly, so they took my father to jail.
Story time about how my mom threw hot boiling water at my dad. Okay, so boom. My parents been together for 15 years at this point and I was only 14. My parents were only dating for a couple of months and then my mom got pregnant with me. So they ended up getting married soon after. The only problem with that is my mom never really got to know my real dad. He had anger issues, and I'm talking real anger issues. And he refused to go to therapy. Well, I'm sure you guys guessed it. My dad was putting his hands on my mom, and I mean beating her for dumb reasons. And every time I tried to stop it, my dad would literally turn around and beat me too. You would think he would stop for his daughter, but because he would beat me so bad, my mom always told me to stay out of it. Well, one day my mom was cooking and she was boiling some water. My dad came home and seen that she was cooking and got angry. He said that his food should be ready before he gets home. My mom just stayed quiet and he went to go hit her. But this day, my mom was tired of it. So something changed. Part 2 on how my mom threw hot boiling water at my dad. So like I said, once my dad got home, he was super angry. He told my mom that his food should have been ready already, even though my mom was literally cooking it. So he went to beat her. but my mom was sick of it. As he went to hit her, my mom just took the boiling water and threw it at his face. My dad screamed, ran upstairs, and went into the bathroom. My mom took the keys, ran to the car, and we drove to her sister's house. My mom was hysterical. No one in our family knew what was going on in our household, so we had to explain everything to everyone. We called the cops on my dad, and now he's in jail. But I did ask my mom what changed this time. She said she couldn't stand there anymore, but not because of her, but because of me. She didn't want me to grow up thinking this was okay, and that this how men treat their women. And she definitely didn't want him to lay one more finger on me ever again. So she had to build up the courage for herself and for me both. And I will always be super proud of my mom.
Story time about how I sabotaged my best friend's relationship with her boyfriend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I met my best friend 3 years ago in school. Since then, we've been inseparable, we have each other's backs, and I love her to death. The only problem is that she has terrible taste in men. She started dating this new guy 6 months ago, and as soon as I met him, I did not like him whatsoever. We all went to dinner. I went with my boyfriend, and my best friend went with her boyfriend. Let's call my best friend's boyfriend Anthony. Anthony was super cocky and arrogant. During the dinner, he started pointing out how my best friend had gained weight. Let's call my best friend Anna. Every time he would say something about her weight, Anna would just laugh. It started pissing me off. Wouldn't it piss you off too? After dinner, I talked to Anna and I asked her if she was okay. She started to cry. She confessed to me that he was always bullying her and making fun of her extra weight. She also confessed that she thought he was seeing other girls. I tried to get her to break up with him that same night, but she said no. She said she loved him. So I made a fake Instagram profile and started DMing him from it. And guess what? Right away, he started DMing me back. So I started DMing my best friend's boyfriend on Instagram through the fake account. I knew he was going to fail the test. Right away, he started messaging me back, writing flirty texts, asking me what city I was in and what I was doing that night. Little did he know he was talking to his girlfriend's best friend. I asked him if he had a girlfriend and he replied no. So I told him we should go out that night. He said yes, and as soon as he sent over his phone number, I started screenshooting everything. I even emailed the screenshots to myself just in case. I run over to my best friend's house and I show her all the screenshots. She wasn't even that surprised because she suspected he was cheating already. She started to cry and I told her, you have to break up with him now. She calls him and tells him to come over, but he said he already has plans because he thinks he's going out with this girl on Instagram. She told him that she really needed to talk to him and that it was important. He said okay, but he could only come by for 5 minutes. When he finally got there, I hid in the bedroom and listened through the door. She confronted him with all the screenshots. Of course, he started denying everything, so I came out of the bathroom. He denied everything and said the screenshots were photoshopped. So I come out of the bathroom to confront him myself, and I tell him, you were texting me the whole time on Instagram thinking you were talking to someone else. He didn't have any response. He was caught. Then, like the narcissist that he is, he actually told my best friend that I had been chasing him for months. She turns to me and actually asks me if it's true. I said, of course not. Then I told her to grab his phone and check his Instagram. He must have more DMs. So she snatches his phone, runs to the bathroom, and locks herself inside. Anthony runs after her and starts trying to kick down the door. I call 911, of course. Then he turns to me and calls me the C word. I thought he was gonna hit me. My best friend opens the door and throws the phone in his face. It turns out he had been DMing 15 other girls that same day. He did break the door, so my best friend filed charges against him. At least he paid for the door.
Story time about how I snuck out of the house and got caught by my crazy psycho mother. Warning you guys, but here we go. At the time, I was 19 and I just got done with my first year at a university. And while I was at school, I met this cute boy, which we're going to call Kendrick. And that whole year, we were talking. So summertime rolls around and I go back to live with my parents. And when it came to my parents, they were very strict about me talking to boys, especially my mom. And I know I was 19, but my mom did not allow me to go out if she didn't know where I was at. So this one day, Kendrick is like, oh, we should go out one night. And I went and told my mom that I was going to the mall with my friends. But as the time got later, it was like too late and my mom started blowing up my phone. And usually when she does that, I'm in big trouble. So I just decided not to pick up because I know I'm going to get in trouble anyway, so I might as well stay out and have fun with whatever time I had. But that was the biggest mistake. Part 2 of how I got caught sneaking out of the house by my crazy psycho mother. So like I said earlier, I was out and she was blowing my phone up and I was not answering. Because I knew I was going to get in trouble anyway, so I might as well just have fun. Well, as the night was getting later, I had to go home. And when my boyfriend Kendrick dropped me off, there was a whole bunch of cars outside of my house, and police cars. When I walked into my house, I saw all of my family, uncle, aunts, cousins, police. It was a whole bunch of people in there. I had my uncles and aunts walking up to me asking what happened to me. Said they called the police because they thought I got kidnapped. At one point, I was going to lie and said I got kidnapped because I didn't want to get in trouble. But I just told everybody I was out with a friend. But when my mom saw me, it was over. It was over. I should have just went ahead and buried my grave then and there because I got my ass whooped in front of everybody and the cops.